All right, in the last video, I left off talking about, how having well-defined roles might help to build social harmony in the group. We're really kind of getting at some of the issues having to do with cohesion. I'm sorry, my face is over half the content. No matter where I put myself, I'm in the wrong place. So what it says up here in the upper left corner behind my head is cohesion. So the strength of the members' motivation to maintain membership in a group is one part of cohesion, like how much those members want to be in the group. And then the links or bonds that have developed among members. So how strongly tied they feel toward each other is the other part of cohesion. So it's a binding force. It helps to keep the group together. It's also a combative force. Group cohesion can actually, foster disagreements among group members, because if we feel like we're a cohesive group, we might feel safe to air our problems. In a cohesive group, group unity and group goals are held as more important than the individual goals. So it doesn't matter whether you get to show off. It doesn't matter whether you get recognized. It matters that we achieve the group goals. In a very cohesive group, there's a special type of interpersonal attraction that goes on with that, where you start to feel committed and dedicated to your group mates in a way that you don't in sort of casual, just sort of organizational based interactions, whatever. When you're in a group working toward a shared goal, it can give you this sort of feeling of connectedness. It's an aspect of teamwork. I mean, cohesion is an aspect of teamwork. We're going to talk a little bit about how cohesive teams function differently from less cohesive teams. So here we have a little chart that shows on the left-hand side, we've got low group cohesion and high group cohesion. So the degree to which the group is feeling cohesive. On the top, it says low task commitment, high task commitment. And so we're talking about how much the group members have really sort of bought into the need for completing this task. So sometimes you've been assigned something and you don't really care about it. And so you've got lower task commitment. Maybe in the high task commitment group, this is something that maybe you spearheaded and you're like, I think this needs to be done. Okay, well, let's form a group and let's get it done. Okay, well, you're probably pretty highly committed to this task because it was your idea. And so you could be anywhere in between those, right? It's a continuum. All right, so you're probably already looking ahead to how these things interact with each other. People who are experiencing low task commitment don't tend to perform very well in the tasks no matter what. Like, let's be honest. I'm currently in a committee that I do not approve of the task. I do not like the task. I think the task is terrible, but we have to do it. It's like state mandated, and so I have to do it. My performance, I have to say, not good. Not good performance in this group because I have such low task commitment. I just do not want to do it. I'm finally going to get it together and get it done before the year ends, but I do not want to do it. My performance has been basically nil for the past 2 years, and I've been in charge of this since 2019. I do not like the task anyway. So low performance is not surprising, given that I don't even care if this task gets done. High task commitment, give me something I'm passionate about and I want to do. If we have a group that is highly cohesive, all working toward this task. I'll give the example of, we came up with the idea of hosting a undergraduate research conference in Bellevue. We came up with the idea in 2019 and we were going to host it for the first time in the spring of 2020. I'm laughing because obviously it got canceled. I moved it onto an online scenario, so we were able to still hold it, but it was not like, we were very passionate and wanted to get it done, and then it got canceled. The second year, we were like only sort of kind of somewhat back even here in Cheney, and Bellevue wasn't really open yet. And so we couldn't really host it in 2021, and we were not passionate about doing it online, so we let it go. 2022 and 23, we were like back burner. Other things have taken over. We're not even thinking about it anymore. So finally in 2024, we're like, what if we brought back that conference? What if we finally get to do that conference face to face over in Bellevue in the spring of 24? And so we got together a committee and we got that thing done, and we were super committed, high task commitment. good group cohesion. We were meeting weekly and getting things done, and had divided. We all had very specific roles in the development of this thing, and we got it done really well. Very high performance on that task. So, you have a high cohesion group and everybody knows what they're doing and why they're doing it. You can get really good performance. Now, if you have a lower cohesion group where maybe not everybody knows what their role is, or not everybody feels like they're part of the group, or that their part really matters, or any of those, maybe they don't like their other group mates. I mean, there are a lot of factors that can reduce group cohesion. And what we find is that, performance varies depending on how many, based on a bunch of different factors. So group cohesion seems to lead to team performance and member satisfaction. Like, that's an overarching sort of generality. But in a low cohesion group, you can get pretty good performance if they have a good high task commitment. You can get pretty good performance. It might be coming from maybe one member, though, or it might be coming from just a couple of people, and others maybe have disconnected. And that's the problem, is if you want everybody sort of equally contributing and everybody's sort of all doing their part, high group cohesion and a group that's committed to the task is going to produce the best performance. All right, so when we talk about group cohesion and how groups are formed, Tuckman provided us with 5 stages of group development. Now, I don't know if you can recognize what's in the background there, but this is like day 1 of Survivor, right? This is an older episode from a number of years ago, but the group has all arrived. They've been sorted into their tribes. If you've ever watched Survivor, you'll right off recognize what I'm talking about by using it as the model to follow Tuckman's 5 stages. If you've never watched it, you can make it your homework and get on, I think it's on Hulu or something, and you can watch a season and see what I'm talking about. So when a group first forms, we've got the forming stage. Everybody's just getting acquainted. People tend to be nice. They're polite, maybe a little guarded. They don't want to share everything yet. They don't know, don't disclose too much. Next thing you know, you'll be like doing the hard tasks, or if you disclose too much, you might get marginalized by the other group members. And so everybody's just sort of exploring, trying to figure out who's here, who's trustworthy, things like that. So that's the forming stage. The storming stage is where we start to have disagreement in the group. Not everybody's on the same page, and it's obvious. They may start to question each other more pointedly. They might hold each other accountable for something that they said before, or something that they did in an earlier meeting. There might be some conflict. There might be some arguments, like literal raised voices, disagreements might occur in, a nice professional group. In Survivor, it may be even, like more escalated than that. In the norming stage, this is where unity is established. I always like to point to this as being the phase where just after the tribes have merged, the ones who had been in another tribe together and now they're in one big merged tribe, a lot of times suddenly unity is established among them. Well, we all used to be in the old group, so obviously we'll be loyal to each other, right? And those members have become even more cohesive than they were when they were a tribe by themselves, because during that they were storming. So now they're like, okay, we're in a new situation. Let's all become connected to each other and committed to each other. They start to develop roles for each other and standards for each other, and maybe even deeper relationships develop. This happens in any kind of work group where you start to really understand each other, and that's how the roles evolve. Right? Okay, well, you tend to be the one who's really organized. So what if you note all this down and then send all of us, a calendar update that has the points from today's meeting and our plan for next meeting. Like you're so organized, you take care of that stuff. Standards, we all get here on time. Maybe we have this kind of standard in our group that we're all going to be on time. Or if we set a deadline, we meet the deadline, or something like that. Those would be the kinds of standards we're talking about. And then relationships develop. We start to actually have, connections to each other, or, not all relationships are great, right? So sometimes you have sort of the rivalry relationship, or you have, some kind of conflict as part of your relationship, and that might be it. Or you don't like each other. And so the relationship is, we avoid each other. So this is what happens during the norming stage. The performing stage is where members become focused on productivity and goal achievement. They really, focus in. They all point themselves in the same direction task orientation is very high during the performing stage. I would say this would be, during one of the challenges in Survivor. They all work together. They don't try and undermine it. Back in the olden days of Survivor, there would be sometimes they would throw a challenge, but generally that never happened. It was like, we're working together. We're all trying to get this done so that we don't end up in a situation where we have to vote someone off. So task orientation is super high. And this is true in groups. Like once they've gotten sort of the feel of each other and they're starting to develop these relationships from the norming stage, they can settle in and focus on the task and get that task done, especially when they are committed to the task. But even if they're not that committed to the task, at least they know it has to get done. And so their orientation is high. And then the adjourning stage is when the group is, done. And so we don't need to be working together day by day or week by week to keep this group project going or whatever. And so the roles are terminated, the relationships weaken, and the members become less dependent on each other. This can be a stressful time to break up the group, and now we still see each other at work, but we don't have the relationship that we used to have. And so there may be some tension going on with that, because I thought we were friends and now you barely give me a chin jet when I see you at the break room. Like, this is weird. Why are we having this experience? And again, to point to Survivor, I mean, after it's over with and they adjourn, they have their little, what do you call it? That little episode where they sit around the fire and talk one last time. And then they may not see each other. Maybe they get together for Survivor events. I don't know if they have Survivor events, but they maybe see each other there. And that's when a lot of times it's really clear that these people who had really bonded over, 39 days, or I think the modern era, it's something more like 29 days. They really had bonded and thought they had really made a friend for life, or were really, like this group stuff really led us to a real relationship. And then it can be kind of stressful. Maybe you feel like I'm still dedicated, but the other person's not expressing any interest in me or something like that. And that can be that tension that can occur when it feels like one of you is still wanting to maintain a relationship and the other one doesn't, and a bunch of stuff. So Tuckman, I think, does a really good job of describing what happens with groups. And I think Survivor does a good job of illustrating that idea. All right, and then this last bad part in groups is social loafing, reduction in individual effort when people work in groups. I know for me, I oftentimes, unless I'm running the group and I do all the work, if I'm in a group, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do the minimal I can to get through this thing I got assigned to do, right? So we socially loaf. You've probably been in groups at school where somebody in the group was socially loafing, not doing their part. So let's talk about what factors go into loafing and what factors go into not loafing. So we're less likely to loaf when we believe that our individual efforts will be identified. That's really important in the workplace, because if you have a group and you're all going to get the same exact benefit, you can imagine that there are going to be some loafers. Like, why bother putting the effort in if I'm getting the exact same outcome as everybody else? I think sometimes loafers don't think to themselves, well, we might get a better outcome if I would just pitch in. I don't think they're thinking that. I think they're thinking, I'm going to do the minimum I can for the maximum output, right? So minimal in, maximal out is what I want. And so if I don't think anybody's going to notice or report, or I get less because I loafed, my loaf, right? So we're more likely to loaf if we have a free riding mindset. If we think that our efforts are not necessary to the group success, so I honestly think they've got it, they don't need me. Or if I think whether I help or not doesn't matter, I'm still getting the same outcome, I'm probably going to free ride. I'm probably going to loaf. We're less likely to loaf when we think that other people are going to be personally affected by my lack of effort. If I say I don't want to, and then I see my friend in my group having to do more work, they're staying late because they've got more time, they have to spend more time because I'm not doing my part, it might make me not want to loaf after all, because I can see that people are personally affected by my effort or my lack of effort. And if I put in a good day's work and other people now can get their work done, that's another way that, I see people are personally affected by me just putting in the effort I should be putting in, that I was assigned to do. We're more likely to loaf when we believe in the sucker effect, when we feel like our effort is being exploited and I'm not going to be a sucker and I'm going to do the minimum I can because I think this is, you're just taking me for a sucker by making me do this. So the sucker effect can build resentment towards the organization. It can build resentment towards the group members who are trying to get everybody to contribute. So one of the things that we can do to reduce social loafing is to make sure that everybody's efforts are going to be identified. So everybody in the group has to maybe write down what they contributed, and they have to submit that as part of it. One of the things that they're doing in publication right now in journals, some, not all journals are doing this, but some are making, if you have multiple authors, you have to say which one did what in this paper. Part of that is to get around plagiarism, right? So that if you have multiple authors and it later is discovered that something about this paper was copied or the data was falsified or some other unethical thing has happened, a lot of times the second and subsequent authors will go, I am so shocked. I had no idea this was happening on the study I was working on. But by making people delineate their contribution to the paper, they really can't say that. They can't really say, I had no idea, because you know what? We're questioning the statistics and you're in charge of the statistics. So it gets rid of social loafing, and it makes it so you can't hide behind, I didn't know what the senior author was doing. So publications have started doing it. I do it whenever I assign group work. I always make everybody, like if this class had been face-to-face, the reason why you turn in your full answer to the focus on ethics questions is because in a face-to-face class, you turn that in before we have our class meeting so that I know you've done your homework and you're ready to talk. And that way, when you're in the group, everybody has done their homework and is ready to talk. If you're in class on the day of the discussion and you didn't turn in the written homework, you have to tell your group, honestly, I didn't read yet. And so I'm just going to go with my gut. I don't know. And so we know, like hold people accountable for what they've done, and they are more likely to do what they're expected to do. So those are things that like the organization can help to do as far as like getting around, that tendency to want to loaf. As far as the free writing and that gets really like the free writing, as far as the sucker effect, I think it's really important for organizations to convey the meaningfulness of what the group is doing, how every individual's contribution to the end product is equally valuable, and things like that, so that the employee doesn't feel like their effort is just being exploited. All right, let's go ahead and stop here, and we'll talk about effective group decision making in the next video.